John Bolton's home and office raided by the FBI. Apparently, some classified documents in his possession. That's a big no-no. Is he up to his mustache in trouble? We'll give you all the details coming up in just 1 second. Also, mayhem in Northern Virginia as that governor's race tightens up. Just wait till you see the hysterical, despicable sign held up by a white liberal woman who just can't stand the idea of a conservative black woman being her governor. We're gaining ground in that race. Also, Gavin Newsom is absolutely unhinged right now, and the Democrats love him. We're going to show you all of the ridiculous stuff he's saying about Trump and about Republicans. I'm punching you in the mouth. In the meantime, we'll throw a little cold water on his efforts to try to gerrymander California. All that coming up and a whole lot more right now. We're back. We're live. And we're brought to you by The Lion. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Yeah, we are back. Couple days off there, but we gave you some pretty good interviews, and I hope you enjoyed them with Mark Halperin and Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director. But, you know, it is vacation time in and around Washington, D.C. There's going to be a few more days off coming up, but we're going to keep you occupied with lots of good interviews that we're planning over the course of the next several days so that you're always going to get some content coming from us. And thank you for your patience and all of your comments wanting us to come back. We're back. Here we are. Let's talk about The Lion real fast. If you care about staying sharp and informed, make The Lion part of your daily routine. Published by the Herzog Foundation, The Lion covers the headlines that matter, from politics and policy to culture and faith, all through a common sense, values-driven lens. It's the kind of journalism that goes beyond the surface, offering the context and clarity today's news demands. So whether you're tracking the big national stories or you want to know what's happening in school, state houses, and communities across the country, The Lion delivers smart, well-sourced reporting you won't find anywhere else. Go to readlion.com. While you're there, sign up for their Lion's daily and weekly newsletters so you never miss a beat. That's readlion.com, news that informs and respects your worldview. John Bolton is the former Bush administration ambassador to the United Nations. And back then, the liberal elites and Democrats in Washington, D.C. couldn't stand the guy. They thought that he was a warmonger and that he was a liar and he was deceitful and he was conceited and he was arrogant. And then Trump became president. And for a few months, Bolton became Trump's national security advisor until Trump fired him. And now those same people love John Bolton. But John Bolton just had a visit by the FBI this morning at his front door. And based on one legal analyst's opinion, he could be in deep, deep trouble. First, let's turn to CNN, where they were acting like they were covering a funeral over there. Here's how they reported the early morning raid.
We're following major breaking news this morning that continues to unfold. The FBI conducting a court-authorized search at the home of John Bolton as part of a national security investigation. That is according to a source familiar with the matter. A ton of questions around this right now. Our CNN crew has been on the ground, on the scene this morning, observed FBI personnel near Bolton's home, even seeing personnel go into his home. John Bolton, as you well know, is President Trump's former national security advisor and a former U.S. ambassador to the UN. In recent years, he has become a prominent critic of the president ever since he left the first Trump administration. As recently as this week, he spoke to us about President Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin.
Well, I think it's a reflection of just how confident the Russians feel. They have escaped the sanctions that have been threatened by President Trump. They've heard Secretary of State Rubio say on Sunday, we're not going to sanction them because it will cause diplomatic efforts to fail. And they are trying to keep the table set so that things work out in their direction.
That was just a couple days ago. CNN's Caitlin Polans joining us now. Caitlin, you brought us this breaking news and you have some new reporting already. What's going on?
That's right, Kate. We can confirm, according to a person familiar with this investigation, that the probe, it's related to the possible retention of national security information. So a little bit more specific on what we know about this investigation, this search that the FBI is conducting of John Bolton's home. Not only is it about national security, it is about the retention of national security information. Often, Kate, that looks like, are there classified documents being kept outside of where they should be kept? That often is what we see in investigations like this, but we're still waiting to hear more of what this is. The FBI, they are at work still on that scene in Maryland where John Bolton's home is. They took bags out of their vehicles to bring inside. There were 4 or 6 agents. They have those blazers on that say FBI in the back. So this is quite an observable scene right now, very different than when the retention of national security information was being investigated during a search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago property 3 years ago.
Wait, I'm sorry. How is this different exactly? They were wearing FBI windbreakers then, and then it was before sunrise with sirens everywhere. And no, you didn't see all of the activities at the home of President Trump because it's Mar-a-Lago. It's behind gates and walls and guards, but there was plenty of show of force that morning. What the hell are you talking about? This, by the way, is easy to see from the street because he lives in Bethesda, Maryland, which is a city that borders Washington, D.C. It's where a lot of rich, howdy-towdy liberals live. Not that John Bolton's a liberal, but he's part of the establishment, that's for sure. Yes, this does have to do, apparently, with classified documents. We're going to get into the comparison of how the FBI treated John Bolton this morning versus how they treated Donald Trump, since our young lady at CNN raised that issue, and also how they treated Joe Biden's retention of classified documents, you'll remember. One other thing about John Bolton, the nuclear walrus, he was never president of the United States. I just want to make sure you recognize that, because the rules are different for a president, a former president with documents coming from his own administration and his own White House that he has, versus the former national security advisor or a former ambassador to the United Nations retaining classified documents. One other thing, John Bolton is a political figure. He's not just a foreign policy expert. He's not just a national security expert, like they try to refer to him as. He is a political figure. In 2015, he formed an exploratory committee to run for president of the United States. He decided not to enter the race because it was such a crowded field. But you'll remember that was the same race that Donald Trump decided to enter, and he won. So understand that about John Bolton. He's not just some guy who's worked as a political opponent. No. He is a political figure, and at one point flirted with the idea of vying for the presidency against Donald Trump. Just remember that as we continue to see how this story unfolds. Oh, one other thing. Did you notice she's very frustrated? She said, all we know is what we've heard about, that this has something to do with national security. But other than that, we have not heard anything else from the FBI. She's like flustered and frustrated that they're not leaking to her like they always did under Christopher Wray and James Comey. Did you catch that tone in her voice? Other than that, we really don't know what else is happening here. We haven't heard a thing. We're just going to have to wait. Yes, that's how criminal investigations are supposed to happen, ma'am. All right, a little bit more here from CNN, and then we'll move on.
John Bolton, he has not been charged with anything here. He's not been in government for 6 years. He did write a book and was under investigation soon after he left the Trump administration in 2020. He was being investigated at that time by a federal grand jury in Washington on the possible disclosure of classified information in that book, and he was not charged there. So looking at the possibility of a through line, it seems to be more likely, given that this is about the retention of national security information. There hasn't been a formal comment yet that we have received from John Bolton or from his lawyer. He was unaware of the FBI activity this morning. He wasn't home at the time. And we also are waiting to see if the administration will say anything publicly. So far, some cryptic messages posted on social media by the two top officials at the FBI. Kash Patel, the FBI director, on the platform X, writing, "No one is of the law FBI agents on mission." That was right after 7 a.m. this morning. And then the deputy FBI director, Dan Bongino, posting, "Public corruption will not be tolerated," not mentioning John Bolton by name in either of those things. This is a situation that would be court authorized. So the FBI would have gone to a court with the help of Justice Department prosecutors asking to have the approval of a search like this take place. They would have had to have probable cause to do this. But that, as we know, is a far, far long way from potential charges and also potential trial, anything like that.
Something tells me that they covered the raid on Mar-a-Lago a little differently than they're covering this story. Oh, they're so predictable and so tedious. Let me fill in some blanks here. You heard her allude to an investigation where a grand jury was impaneled in 2020 investigating John Bolton based on revealing classified information and potentially retaining classified documents back then with regard to his memoir called In the Room Where It Happens, or I think The Room Where It Happens. And it was about his time in the Trump administration as his national security advisor. Now, the book is like this thick, okay? But his time serving Donald Trump was really more a little like this. Not that size matters or anything, but come on, man. And frankly, naming a book, a personal memoir about your time working in the White House, naming that after a song from Hamilton, I mean, I'm sorry, that should make you face federal charges right there, in my opinion. But understand something. Under Attorney General Bill Barr, a grand jury was impaneled and they were investigating John Bolton's criminal use of classified documents and leaks of national security information. Then Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe, who is now the CIA director, participated in that investigation and believed that John Bolton did in fact violate the law having to do with national security secrets and classified documents, mishandling thereof. You just heard the CNN reporter say that no charges were filed. Let me complete that statement for you because although it is accurate, it is incomplete. The investigation was still open and ongoing when the new president came into office in January of 2021. His name was Joe Biden. And then the investigation was halted. No resolution, no exoneration, no dropping of charges. There were no charges brought. They just stopped investigating. Don't look over there. Stop looking over there. We have more important things to do. January 6th. So, in my opinion, what we're seeing right now is the resumption of the investigation that had begun in 2020. I could be wrong. We'll see. Unlike other people, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I don't know. I'm just going to tell you the facts and fill in what she left out. You did hear a lot on cable news this morning and on broadcast news as their hair was on fire that this investigation was going on, that this was because Donald Trump ordered this raid on John Bolton as punishment and retribution because John Bolton has been critical of Donald Trump. That's what you heard everywhere, without any evidence, without any facts. Clearly, Donald Trump has ordered this. This man is being investigated because Donald Trump doesn't like him. That's what's happening here. Well, I can understand them jumping to that conclusion because that's what we saw for 4 years under Joe Biden. And it's certainly what we saw with the lawfare that was employed against Donald Trump and anyone who worked for Donald Trump or liked Donald Trump and supported Donald Trump under Barack Obama or the regime of James Comey, James Clapper, and John Brennan. I get why you would jump to that conclusion. But here's Donald Trump addressing the issue head on.
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's a real sort of a lowlife. When I hired him, he served a good purpose because, as you know, he was one of the people that forced Bush to do the ridiculous bombings in the Middle East. Bolton, he wants to always kill people, and he's very bad at what he does. But he worked out great for me because every time he doesn't talk, he's like a very quiet person, except on television. If he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that. But he really doesn't talk. He's quiet. And I'd walk into a room with him with a foreign country, and the foreign country would give me everything because they said, oh, no, they're going to get blown up because John Bolton's there. He's not a smart guy, but he could be a very unpatriotic guy. I mean, we're going to find out. I know nothing about it. I just saw it this morning. They did a raid.
Do you expect the DOJ to brief you on this?
Yeah, they'll brief me, probably today sometime.
And the foreign minister.
I tell Pam and I tell the group, I don't want to know, but just you have to do what you have to do. I don't want to know about it. It's not necessary. I could know about it. I could be the one starting it. I'm actually the chief law enforcement officer, but I feel that it's better this way.
All right. So there's President Trump saying he didn't know anything about it, but he, well, as you saw, has no great fondness for John Bolton. Now, let's turn to Fox News coverage, where they have George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley, who knows the law backwards and forwards. And if you have paid attention to Jonathan Turley over the years, you know that when it comes to lawfare employed against Trump or people within the Trump universe, he's been dead on right about everything. Like yesterday, Letitia James' ridiculous $500 million fine against Donald Trump for the outrageous trumped up real estate mortgage fraud allegations that they dragged up into the court to try to harm Donald Trump and keep him from running for office. That got thrown out by an appellate court in New York. They were embarrassed about how outrageous it was. And Jonathan Turley told you that would happen. He is spot on about this stuff and really knows the law. And by the way, he's not serving opium up to you and shooting it into your veins. He'll sometimes say, yeah, I think Trump might be in trouble with this thing or not or whatever. Well, let's see what Jonathan Turley thinks about these charges against John Bolton, or at least the suggestion that there are crimes here with regard to the retention of classified documents, and specifically documents having to do with national security implications. Jonathan Turley, what does this mean for John Bolton?
It is intriguing here because these are long-standing allegations that the book indicated or referenced classified material that he may have acquired when he was in the administration. We're not clear as to what that is, but it would suggest that it could be national defense information. The reason that's important is that creates a heightened potential penalty. So you can have penalties that range from 5 to 20 years. 20 years tends to be the sentences for concealing information, obstructing justice. Simply having classified information can weigh in at about 10 years. And there are often multiple counts because each of those documents can be charged separately. So there is a strange history here. So you had these allegations coming out as early as the first Trump administration. Then there was an allegation that the Biden administration essentially scuttled a further look at this case. Right. And now we have this new development. But we really don't know if there's something that has occurred most recently, whether they uncovered something that they believed is sort of evergreen, that this is still a viable criminal case.
All right, so let me translate that for you. As he said, what the potential penalties might be if, in fact, any document retentions had anything to do with national security. It's like, what did he say, up to 20 years or 30 years? He's in deep if, in fact, they found those documents. And again, the eyewitness report suggests that the FBI was leaving the premises with bags of documents, or, well, we assume they're documents. But yeah, he's probably in deep. How deep? Well, right up to his mustache. That's how deep. It's not good. Also, by the way, we're hearing more from sources close to the investigation. This one by way of our friend Vince Colonnese. I'm sure you know him. We share the same radio station together in Washington, D.C. He replaced Dan Bongino when Dan Bongino went to the FBI as the deputy director, or co-deputy director, I guess now. Vince took his place on his podcast, on his show. And he says, breaking from a source familiar with this morning's raid on Bolton's home. Wonder who that source might be. Did I mention that he replaced Dan Bongino to the... I did, right? I did. No, okay. Anyway, a source familiar with this morning's raid. This is related to a national security investigation of Mr. Bolton that was shut down by the Biden administration for political reasons. It involves stealing classified documents and weaponizing them for political purposes. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have reopened the investigation, hence this morning's raid. Source says Bolton was not detained, but he's fully expected to be charged. That's kind of a thing, isn't it? By the way, I saw somebody mention this in the chat when we started. Yes, that's George Conway. George Conway, who used to be married to Kellyanne Conway, the political genius that won Trump his first term in office, and now a Lincoln Project toady anti-Trump hater, MSNBC dude. That's George Conway live streaming the raid on John Bolton's home. Now, I saw somebody speculate that either George Conway was tipped off or he potentially is John Bolton's gay lover. Don't know for sure either way about either of those two things, although I'm somewhat skeptical of the second. I will tell you this, though. It's Bethesda, dude. This is where these people live. Bethesda, Maryland. He probably lives like down the street or around the block. They're all neighbors. They're all, their kids all go to the same private schools and they all play soccer together. And that's why they're all friends, by the way. Media people, political people, FBI people, they all know each other. They all protect each other. They're all part of the blob in this town. All right. So quickly over back to CNN. They decided to get a reaction from Scott Jennings, and it's rather amusing.
Scott, I mean, what do you see here?
Well, I'm reminded of something that I heard someone say after the Mar-a-Lago raid. And the statement was, everybody ought to just calm down, whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, and let the process work its way through. That was said by John Bolton himself after the Mar-a-Lago raid on Trump. Look, I try not to engage too much in conjecture on these things. All we really know is what Caitlin just told us, that this is related to an investigation regarding information he put in his book. We know that they're searching for things, and that's it. That's what we know. And so Ambassador Bolton's previous views on this were that processes should be allowed to work their way through. I assume this one will work its way through. And if he has not disclosed any classified information, that will be fine and good. And we'll talk about that. And if he has, I'm sure we'll talk about it as well.
Scott.
Yeah, that's a very keen observation and incredibly factual from our buddy and colleague Scott Jennings, because here's John Bolton saying exactly that after the Mar-a-Lago raid.
And I think it's important that everybody take a deep breath here. This is a very serious matter, and it would be better if we could let the legal process play out. I know that may be frustrating to some people, but the seriousness of it itself dictates that we try and proceed in the most orderly way we can.
Yeah, dictate. Absolutely. And we did let the legal process play out, and it did play out. As you know, the Supreme Court knocked down the charges that they were trying to bring against him, and the judge down in Florida knocked down the special counsel's investigation into the retention of classified documents, and eventually all charges were dropped. Do you know why the charges were dropped? Well, two big reasons. The first is Donald Trump won the election. The American people knew all about what the FBI did. We knew all about how they staged the photographs with the little red top secret folders over documents that weren't there before. They brought them to Mar-a-Lago and put them over the documents. We know what the FBI did. We know what the Justice Department did. We know what Biden did. We knew all of it. And the American people voted for Donald Trump anyway. The charges were dropped also because the rules are different when you're the president of the United States and you're retaining documents from your administration, whether it's for writing your memoirs, whether it's for your personal references. You work with the presidential archives. There's a complete law that covers the documents and the papers that you're keeping. And we knew that the Trump administration was working with the archives when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the FBI raids his home. And there were anonymous leaks, and there were people saying that he had nuclear secrets that he was selling to the Saudis or the Iranians and all of that bullshit. And none of it was true. But because he was president of the United States, who, by the way, has the sole top power, no one can veto him over what is a classified document and what is not a classified document, to bring charges against a former president just a year out of office that he is in some way holding on to documents that he shouldn't have, when he was the man who had the power to declassify anything he wanted, was ridiculous. And by the way, you're right, Ambassador Bolton, the legal system played out and Trump was exonerated and he was elected president. The legal process also played out against a former senator and former vice president who had classified documents in his home, not in his office, behind lock and key with constant security like Donald Trump did at Mar-a-Lago. No. They were in a ratty old cardboard box next to his old Corvette in his garage where his crackhead son used to hang out. You know, the crackhead son that did business with foreign entities and made tens of millions of dollars from our adversaries overseas. And hey, look, here's a box of classified documents and national security secrets that dad brought home. Yeah, that guy's name is Biden. And there was an investigation into his classified documents. And you know that the U.S. attorney, Mr. Hur, decided not to bring charges against him. Not because he didn't break the law. Oh, no. He did break the law, and they could have brought charges, but he was so senile and feeble and couldn't even remember when his son died that the U.S. attorney decided not to bring the charges because no jury would actually convict him because they would feel sorry for him. Now, that's one special case with Joe Biden where he was treated very differently than former President Donald Trump. And now that brings us to John Bolton, who I want to remind you was never president of the United States and had no legal right to hold any classified documents, certainly classified documents that hold national security interests. So we shall see how this plays out. But my understanding is that holding on to top secret classified documents with national security implications is an incredibly, super duper serious thing. Do you know how I know that? Because this guy told me.
Given moment. But I don't think he cared about the classification system. I don't think he appreciated the sensitivity of this information, and he didn't appreciate the sensitivity of how it was often acquired, the so-called sources and methods. So this had been briefed to him before I arrived. It was repeated frequently. I think it simply had no impact on him whatever.
There's a couple of different ways that people think about this, and people who are not friendly to the president who think about what's happened here. And one of them is, Donald Trump, master thief, criminal, running some kind of elaborate conspiracy to bring things out of the White House and keep them secret for potentially for political or financial gain. There are other people who attitude is Trump is chaotic. He's careless. He's not that smart. He took these things almost by mistake, and now he's basically stamping his feet and saying they're mine. I don't want to give them up. Give me a sense of where you think the truth lies with respect to Trump's intelligence, carelessness, and the degree to which he might have brought motive to bear on taking these documents out of the White House and keeping them for this long at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, it's very hard to speculate on motive other than that he liked cool things. He saw things so he wanted to take them, and he was pretty much able to take them, and not just on classified information matters, on all kinds of things that crossed his desk. Some days he liked to eat a lot of French fries. Some days he took classified documents. He wanted them. Why did he want them? Because he could get them.
Wow. Yeah, it's really hard to speculate things, but let me tell you the most insulting, despicable speculation I can give you just to make the former president look like a clown. That's one approach. Or you could actually say, well, the president's team said, first of all, they had every right to have these documents, and many of them have been declassified. But in reality, just like any other president leaving the White House after their presidency, there were boxes and boxes of documents. They were all sent to his home, and then they were going through them, and they were working with the archive about which ones they could retain for their books or their memoirs and which ones would go back to the presidential archive, which is exactly what the president said at the time. But of course, no, we've got to talk about eating French fries because we're John Bolton. Well, that was just a one-off. Maybe John had a bad day. Were there any other times he talked about Trump having classified documents?
Joining me now is another member of the Trump administration who's speaking out against his former boss, former National Security Advisor, Ambassador John Bolton. I wanted to start. The New York Times has been reporting that former President Trump was obsessed with these classified documents, and aides described these documents as his beautiful mind materials. Is that consistent with what you saw when you were his National Security Advisor? And was there any one particular document that stuck out to you that he was obsessed with?
Well, I think he was kind of a collector of things that he thought were of interest to him for some reason or another. Clippings, mementos, classified documents. And it was very disturbing. We could see in the course of meetings with him, intelligence briefings, decision meetings, that sometimes he liked to retain things, and it became the practice just to make sure that we got them back in as many cases as we could. Obviously, we failed in many cases, but
there you go. Well, again, John Bolton's on a roll there. I know that he's got strong opinions about Donald Trump having classified documents. He's right out there, tip of the spear, just yapping about it all the time. But I'm sure there weren't any other instances of John Bolton thumping his chest about how important it is that somebody shouldn't have classified documents, right? I doubt he did any more of that.
Just wonder, as someone who worked inside the West Wing when Donald Trump was president, what is it like for you to see his mugshot tonight?
Well, I thought it was, as with most things Trump does, carefully staged. They must have thought about what look they wanted. He could have smiled. He could have looked benign. Instead, he looks like a thug. And I think it's intended to be a sign of intimidation against the prosecutors and judges. That's what they picked, and we'll see that picture everywhere.
So you think they actually spent time deciding, should he smile in this? Should he have this scowl that he appears to have gone with?
Almost as much time as they spent combing his hair.
He posted the mugshot, shortly after on his own social media account, along with the phrase "never surrender." I mean, a bit ironic given he had actually just surrendered at the Fulton County Jail behind me. But how do you expect him to try to use this to his political advantage as he's running for president?
Well, I think in the same way he's used the other three indictments, and I think the evidence is that the indictments have proven the law of diminishing marginal utility. If anything, they're not undercutting his support; they're building it up.
Yeah, well, you got that right. You got to hand it to him. I love these flashback moments, don't you? Listen, early on in this story, all we know is that the FBI went into his home and his office, got a bunch of documents, and now, if we believe the source close to Vince Cullinase from earlier today, they expect to charge him. When you see what he had to say about Donald Trump and the mugshot and being arrested and his use of classified documents and retention thereof, it's hard not to reach the conclusion that, in fact, karma is a bitch. Or, if I can give you the clean version, karma's a Joy Behar, if you know what I mean. Let's finish this examination with some, I think, sober and intelligent words from our friend Hugh Hewitt, who is part of the Salem Radio Network and Salem Media, and also an attorney in good standing and former attorney with the Reagan administration's Justice Department. He said, Ambassador Bolton is best known as a hawk's hawk. President Trump discussed the utility of that reputation this morning. You saw that video. But Bolton is also a very, very experienced lawyer. He headed the civil division of the DOJ at the end of the Reagan era. He's also a prolific note taker, as his memoir of his UN years makes plain. I've been friendly with the ambassador for a couple of decades, frequent guest on air, and acquaintance off. I can't imagine he has classified documents at his home. But as the Biden garage showed, hubris can lead longtime senior officials to mistakes on documents. That said, the optics are so bad for Director Patel and AG Bondi if there is nothing there. The president strongly asserted that he had no knowledge of the search, and they'd really have to be certain of what they think they will find, whether classified documents or evidence of FARA violations. FARA violations is if you're doing business for a foreign government as a lobbyist or trying to influence policy or policy makers on behalf of a foreign government, you need to legally register as a representative of that foreign government. If it turns out that you've got income from a foreign government for doing such activities and you never registered, that's a violation. The best approach for commentators to note is that the ambassador has a long record of public service. That's true. He's a superb lawyer. I don't know. And that he has cleared many full field bureau background investigations, including no doubt an update prior to his becoming National Security Advisor to 45 in April of 2018, that the AG and director have as much at stake here as the former NSA, and that POTUS is not the moving force behind the warrant. That's all. That's all anyone knows until the warrant is public. I agree with most of that. I think that he's a very generous, kind-hearted man, and he's being more generous to John Bolton than I probably would be, although I've met him and have known him as well on and off, although I don't think we've spoken since 2018. But I will tell you this. Everything he just said is absolutely accurate. If they've got nothing on John Bolton, this will make Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Attorney General Pam Bondi look really, really bad. That suggests to me that they knew exactly what they were going to find when they did this raid, and they have all their ducks in a row. They would not have done something like this with this high a profile unless they actually knew where this was headed. So keep your eye on it. And also, I think the other most important thing that you just pointed out is that the president has asserted and repeated that he did not direct this to happen. Other than that, we're just going to have to wait and see. But if I were John Bolton, I would be starting a GoFundMe right now for his legal defense. And I suspect he is. If you care about the direction of this country, you need to be reading The Lion, published by the Herzog Foundation, the national leader in Christian education. The Lion is an award-winning news site delivering sharp, timely reporting on what's really happening in America's schools, culture, and government. It's kind of journalism that cuts through the noise and gives you the full picture, especially when it comes to the growing movement toward Christ-centered education. But The Lion goes beyond classrooms. It covers parenting, faith, freedom, culture, battles shaping our future. Just like its namesake, The Lion embodies strength and courage, standing firm in a landscape where too many have surrendered our children's future to the left's ideology. Visit readlion.com and sign up for the daily or weekly newsletter so you never miss a headline. That's readlion.com. Clarity, courage, and news that keeps you informed and equipped. As you know, there's a big governor's race in Virginia. And when the polls started measuring Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, versus Winsome Sears, the lieutenant governor and Republican, in May, Abigail Spanberger had a double-digit lead. She was up by 17 points. But things have started to take a turn in this race, and it was absolute mayhem last night in Northern Virginia, Arlington County, where at a school board meeting, protesters who just hate the idea of a Republican being governor for a second term, well, they came out in full force against Winsome Sears, and one woman had a sign that you will not believe. We'll show it to you in a second, but first, let's take a look at the scene outside this Arlington County School Board meeting. And just so you know, the reason for this meeting was to reevaluate the gender activist policies that they've put in place where men and boys can go into girls' facilities. The reason why they're reevaluating that policy is because a couple of months ago, a little 9-year-old girl was, well, assaulted by a man who exposed himself to her. The man, who I kid you not is named Richard Cox, is a convicted sexual predator. And he now claims that he is a woman. And so he had every right to go into the ladies' locker room where he disrobed, toweled off, and paraded around in front of women and in front of girls. Now, Mr. Cox has subsequently been arrested for doing this sort of stunt in various facilities around Northern Virginia, but the Arlington County School Board refuses to change their policy that allowed this to happen in the first place. Well, the lieutenant governor, Winsome Sears, who's running for governor, she announced that she would be appearing at this school board meeting to deliver her remarks as a concerned citizen. And so the scene outside the meeting, as you can imagine, brought out all the lunatics.
I know what it's like to grow up in an environment, to grow up in a culture that does not have these protections. I know what it's like to have to hide, to not have the words to describe what I'm feeling, to know that if I was honest, that my family and myself and my friends would be Keep your hands off them. Keep your hands off them. You're not parents. Stop manipulating children and release the Epstein files. Prescribing medication for the rest of their lives. You support a pedophile children. Children. You are pushing them down. Just sit for a pedophile rapist. Walk away, everybody. Walk away. Walk away. Walk away. Walk away. And get them help. And get them help.
All right. So you saw all the lunatics over there with the blue hair and doing their thing with their trans flags and all that stuff and talking about this thing. And then this guy with this black t-shirt that says trans women are men in the colors of the trans flag, by the way, decides to come up and heckle them and start telling them, what are you doing? You're getting kids addicted to prescription drugs for their entire life. You're advocating genital mutilation. What is wrong with you, you ghouls? I am very proud to report to you that that gentleman's name is Corey Inganamort, and he is our colleague here on this show and at Town Hall Media. He was not operating under his official capacity for our company. He happens to live in Arlington, down the street from this. He saw what was going on, and he was done. He decided, screw it. I'm going to go mess with these people. I'm going to challenge them on their ideology. Now, this video that you just saw came from a local reporter in Northern Virginia, Nick Minnock, for the ABC affiliate. Here's the video. Here's the video from. I'm laughing because we've known Corey for years. He's amazing. Here is Corey engaging with these lunatics from his point of view.
Mutilating children and prescribing medication for the rest of their lives. That is saving children. That's saving children. You are pushing them down a mentally ill path. You are pushing them down. Walk away, everybody. Walk away. I can see it. Walk away. Be prepared and get them help. And get them help.
I love the lunatic who's like blowing a whistle and screaming Epstein files. It's like, is it me, or for the last several months, has that basically been all the messaging you get from a Democrat in this town? You know, you can point out anything that's going on. Hey, there's murders in D.C. Epstein files. Hey, we have declassified documents showing that Obama ordered the whole Russian collusion hoax. Epstein files. And I do love the one guy who's dressed like a normal human being. He's the boss man. He's the ringleader. And he's not, don't engage. Move along. Move along. No. We don't need this. No, come on. He gets to dress like a normal human. But everybody else, they have to get up in their circus clown outfits. Literally. A little bit more.
A lot of people they're scared of. All they have to offer is fear. And if you've heard them talk for more than a few minutes, you know there's a lot they don't understand.
Hold on. I do like that. Corey's about to engage and start yelling at him. But did you hear that? These people who oppose our policies, when you start talking to them, you recognize there's a lot they don't understand. And it's true. There's a lot about their position that I just can't wrap my brain around. But there is one fundamental thing that we know that they don't understand and they can't understand. And I think that it sort of overrides all the other garbage. See, here's the thing we know that they can't understand. There are two sexes, male and female. That's it. And by the way, men can't get pregnant. Okay? Those are the differences. The women, in most cases, when everything's working properly, can actually get pregnant and bear a child. Men cannot. And I'm telling you, if you ask any Democrat in that crowd, on the Arlington County School Board, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in Washington, D.C., and nationwide, there's only a small handful of Democrat elected officials who will actually affirm that biological and galactic truth, which is that men cannot have babies. But we're the ones who don't understand. We're the ones who are ignorant. Okay, so let's get back to that moment, and then Corey Inganamort of Town Hall Media takes over.
Here, and if you've heard them talk for more than a few minutes, you know there's a lot they don't understand.
There's no such thing as transgender children, only mentally ill parents. Only mentally ill parents. What's a trans child? Only mentally ill parents would prescribe their children drugs for the rest of their lives and mutilate their bodies. Why do you hate children?
I love that. There's no such thing as a transgender child, only mentally ill parents. Good on you, Corey. That isn't even the most outrageous thing that happened at this meeting. As the lieutenant governor, who, by the way, I haven't mentioned it because it's not important to me. I'm a Republican, but it's important to other people. The lieutenant governor, Winsome Sears, is also black. She's a first-generation immigrant, black woman, conservative, Republican, Marine. I mean, come on. She's everything. As she was showing up one of the liberal, lefty, lunatic, Democrat protesters brought this sign. It says, "Hey, Winsome, if trans can't share your bathroom, then blacks can't share my water fountain." Ah, the tolerant, inclusive diversity of the white liberal women of the Democrat Party. It's amazing when you got a Democrat and you start pressing them on their issue and they're backed into a corner. You just have to scratch the surface a little bit and boom, here comes Jim Crow, the Klan, and even slavery, as we've seen in the immigration argument, right? Oh, who's going to pick our fruit? Well, I'm going to have to pay more for childcare. They can't escape the roots of their party's origins. Slavery, the Klan, and Jim Crow. And there she is. You black woman, you disagree with me? Boom. There it is. Now, as you can imagine, the reaction to that sign was pretty stark. And it started getting played on television while this event was going on. Local TV and then cable news started to pick it up. And watch what happens as one of the ringleaders for the party or the organization, whatever this rent-a-crowd was, came over to the woman, the racist grandma. I'm sorry, progressive, liberal, inclusive, hate has no home here on my front yard sign grandma. Forgive me. When the ringleader came over to the woman and explained that maybe she should put that sign away, pay close attention as to why this sign needs to be put away.
Thank you. Okay, apologies for this interview.
I love that she just shrugs. I don't care. Why would this get negative play right now? So the man in charge, who's like the ringleader for the rent-a-crowd here, is not saying, ma'am, that's objectively speaking offensive and not really the message that we're trying to put out. After all, the governor is black. And by the way, equating a man exposing himself to a little girl in a locker room to the evils of Jim Crow and segregation and Rosa Parks, I don't think that's where we want to be right now. But yeah, Richard Cox, the man who disrobes and wags his schlong in front of little girls in a locker room to get his kicks. He's Rosa Parks for the trans movement. Fine, baby. You want to own that? Own that. But that's not why she has to put the sign away. Why does she have to put the sign away?
Thank you. Okay, apologies for this interview.
Yeah, it's because it's getting a lot of negative play on TV. Maybe we just talk like that amongst ourselves, okay? When the cameras aren't around. These people are awful. Awful people. By the way, I talk about the rent-a-crowd activists. Apparently, this crowd has a name. According to some research done by this political consultant, Ben Tribbett in Northern Virginia. Funny thing about Northern Virginia and Maryland and D.C., you will trip over a political consultant in the dark if you're not careful. They're everywhere. And Mr. Tribbett investigated the group that was out there, or one of the groups that was paid to be there. It's an activist for WOFA, We of Action, which is a far-left group that has been putting up all the signs on 66 and 395 local expressways with former county board member Libby Garvey. Totally unacceptable, and Democrats should be furious with them right now. This is all well-financed. It's very well paid for. And by the way, most of the activists, as you saw, if they're not trans themselves, are just a bunch of elderly people. They probably used to work for the government, or they used to work in politics, and now they're retired, and they make some extra coin so they can pay for their Geritol by going to these protests. As you can imagine, the reaction was quite severe, although one reporter for a local news station went up to the woman and asked her about the sign. Shireen Raji got the woman to say that it was satire. It was satire, guys, meant to provoke conversation around the absurdity of prejudice. Well, mission accomplished, ma'am. If anyone thinks we're actually supporting separate drinking fountains based on race, they're mistaken. These are the people who hate Trump because of mean tweets. Right? Winsome Sears condemned it directly as well on social media. I'm disgusted but not surprised. This is the tolerant left Abigail Spanberger defends. I'm the sitting lieutenant governor, second in command in the former capital of the Confederate States. I'm an immigrant, a Marine, and above all, a human being. There's no place for this disgusting hatred in our Commonwealth. Anyone who doesn't condemn this sign is complicit in approving it. I'll go one step further. Elections are choices. When you mark your ballot box, you're choosing whose team you want to be on, whose side you want to be on. And it's not always easy, I promise. There have been many times when what do? Hold your nose and then make your vote. I get it. If you're in Virginia and you're voting for one side or the other, if you vote for Winsome Sears, you're voting for an immigrant, a Marine, and a human being who's currently the lieutenant governor of Virginia. If you vote for Abigail Spanberger, you're on this woman's side. That's the side you're deciding to join. There are moments like this that can be tipping points in elections. Let's not forget, it was 4 years ago when Terry McAuliffe was in a commanding lead to be governor, the Democrat of Virginia, when Glenn Youngkin, during a debate, said that I think parents should have the right to decide what kind of content is in the public schools. And Terry McAuliffe said, nah, I don't think parents have any say about what books should be in the library in a school system. And that was the end for Terry McAuliffe. So now how does this play out? I'll give you a little bit more. First, one reporter did ask Abigail Spanberger for comment. Her team sent a one-sentence reply. Abigail condemns this repulsive display. It's racist, abhorrent, and unacceptable. The team sent one sentence, not Abigail Spanberger, not the candidate herself. She didn't rush in front of a camera. She didn't make a statement herself personally. She's hiding. She's been nowhere. I need to tell you what's going on in Northern Virginia. In Loudoun County, Virginia, which is 2 counties over from Arlington, boys in the boys' locker room at a high school were caught on video objecting to a girl coming into the locker room. Now, the girl identifies as a boy. The boys were saying, hey, I don't want a girl in here. That makes me uncomfortable. There shouldn't be a girl in the boys' locker room. The boys have been suspended for sexual harassment and bullying because they wanted a girl out of their locker room. In Fairfax County, there are allegations that employees of the high school helped convince 2 teenage underage girls to go get abortions and kept it from their parents, and they paid for the abortions. And now you've got this story in Arlington. And let me give you the video of Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat nominee, commenting on all of these issues. Oh, I can't do that because we don't have it, because it doesn't exist, because she has stayed silent on all these issues. She's running from the basement. She's acting like Joe Biden. I wonder if she's senile too. She knows that the media is going to do the hard work for her and drag her across the finish line. Well, Winsome Sears sees the power of this moment. And here she was at the Arlington School Board meeting. This is what all of those lunatics were protesting. This is what all of those crazy leftists didn't want the school board to hear, didn't want you to hear.
Good evening. My name is Winsome Earl Sears. I'm a Marine. I am a mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm an immigrant to this great country. It was my job growing up in Jamaica to dust the picture of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I also served as vice president on the Virginia State Board of Education. I have sat where you are sitting, and let me tell you, what is happening in our schools right now is just wrong. It's dangerous, it's insane, and it has to stop. Here's the truth. There are 2 sexes, boys and girls, and for generations we've understood this, that they deserve their own sports teams, their own locker rooms, their own bathrooms. That's not discrimination. It is common sense. But here in Arlington, the trust between parents and schools is being broken. When girls lose their privacy, when boys are punished for speaking plain truth, when parents are silenced for simply asking questions, that's not education, that's indoctrination. You are one of the 5 Nova school districts who have been found in violation of Title IX. Title IX was written to protect biological girls' spaces and opportunities on the basis of biological sex, not gender identity. And by refusing to reverse your reckless policies, you are failing our daughters and risking losing millions of dollars in funding our children. This is not theoretical. Right here in Arlington, a convicted child sex offender walked into a high school girls' locker room and exposed himself to young girls. That is the reality. That is the danger. And it's about keeping schools focused on reading, writing, and math, not ideology. As governor, I will not stand by while political correctness tramples over science, fairness, and safety. I will continue to fight for all students. I will continue to fight for parents. And I will continue to fight for the values that make Virginia strong. Our children's lives are not a game. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening.
You heard them cut the microphone there because you only get 2 minutes for public comment at the Arlington School Board. And that's why she was talking pretty fast to get it all out. But that's clear, and that's common sense, and it's normal, and it transcends Republican and Democrat, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I mean, isn't this something that we should be able to agree on? That's Winsome Sears in Arlington last night. The day before, she was in Loudoun addressing a rally in support of those boys who were suspended because they didn't like the idea of girls in their locker room. Here she is.
Folks, if you're angry, if you're frustrated, and you should be, then we've got to do something. I tell you what you do. You yourselves run for office for the school board. That's what you do. You yourself make a decision to do that. And if you're not going to do that, find people who are going to run for the school board and support them. There was a time then we thought, well, it's just a school board election. It doesn't, Every election is important. I don't care if it's chief dog catcher, find yourself there.
All right. So she's hitting her stride right now on these issues, and Abigail Spanberger is running scared. She's well funded, this Abigail Spanberger, although the majority of her campaign contributions come from outside of Virginia. Actually, that's noteworthy, isn't it? The Democrat Party is trying to prop her up because they think she's the future, and they keep calling her a moderate, although I can't find anyone who can show me 5 policies where she differs from Nancy Pelosi or AOC or anyone else, Kamala Harris for that matter, not even 3 policies. I've been saying this for quite some time on my radio show in D.C. and right here on this program, and, well, the Winsome Sears campaign has taken notice. Take a look at a brand new ad they just put out today after last night's scene.
Reached out to Democratic gubernatorial candidate Abigail Spanberger's campaign yet again on the locker room issue.
So far, she's not responded.
Her campaign wouldn't give an answer.
She has refused to comment.
She still hasn't responded.
And she can't even speak out about an 80-20 issue.
Abigail Spanberger, nothing.
This sign that reads, "Hey Winsome, if trans can't share your bathroom, then blacks can't share my water fountain," has gotten a lot of attention online.
I'm elected to represent everyone, even those who hate me. I am there trying to protect everyone's children, Democrats' children, Independents' children, Republican children, they're all children.
Abigail Spanberger's statement is non-existent.
In Loudoun County, they have punished several young men who were filmed surreptitiously by a trans-identifying young woman who was in their locker room.
We still have not heard where Abigail Spanberger stands.
It's pretty incredible that that's not an easy question to answer.
And Winsome Sears has gotten on the press conference circuit.
It is time for the insanity to stop. It is settled that boys are boys and girls are girls.
For generations, we've understood this. That's not discrimination. It is common sense.
If you look at her record, she is no different than Nancy Pelosi, AOC.
Spanberger also voted in favor of allowing biological males to compete in women's sports.
You're hiding. You cannot be cowardly on this issue. She is for nonsense and I am for common sense.
That's a good ad. And I'm honored to be right up there with my town hall colleagues, Katie Pavlich and Guy Benson, and former town hall colleague Mary Catherine Ham. That's good stuff. And listen, it's August. The election is in November, although early voting in Virginia starts next month. And I know what you're all saying. Spamberger's, she's up by 17 points, I told you, in May, right? In May, she was up 17 points. And it's a Democrat-leaning state. It's gone for the Democrat president since Obama. That's 2008, for God's sake. So it's been 17 years. And yes, Glenn Youngkin won 4 years ago, but that was a one-off. That was a fluke, man. And by the way, it was that weird thing that happens when a Democrat wins the White House the next year in Virginia. The opposite party often wins the governor's seat. So that's really what happened. Biden won the White House, so Youngkin won. But this time Trump won, so that means the Democrat's going to win, right? Right? Maybe. Maybe. But maybe not. You see, I'm old-fashioned. I still think that elections have to do with issues and the things that people care about and how you're going to be represented and how your issues are going to be fought for, especially when it comes to our children. And this issue is all about our children, just like it was 4 years ago for Glenn Youngkin against Terry McAuliffe when it had to do with your kids' education. It had to do with the COVID policies. It had to do with CRT in the curriculum. It had to do with gender policies and all the same stuff. And Terry McAuliffe said, yeah, I think parents don't have a say in this. I think the professional government employees should have a say. Now, Abigail Spanberger hasn't said that. She's voted that way, but she hasn't said it. She hasn't said anything. And let's talk about that 17-point lead real fast, because earlier this week, there was a new poll out. And that 17-point lead, well, it's down to 7 now. In 2 months, 2.5 months, gaining 10 points with all the media lined up against you, that's saying something. But yeah, 7 points down is not as good as being 7 points up, but the momentum certainly is Winsome Sears's to have right now. And it's definitely going her way. And one other data point I might want to share with you. Winsome Sears down 7 points mid-August. 4 years ago, Glenn Youngkin was down 8 points in mid-August in the exact same poll. He ended up beating Terry McAuliffe by 2 points on Election Day. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Keep an eye on Virginia. Oh, one other thing. If you liked Corey's shirt that said trans women are men, you can actually buy them. He sells them. They're at, what is it called? It's the No Woke Zone. And I think the website is Freedom Counts. Is that what it is, Kevin? Stay with us till the end of the show. We'll give the website for you, because I'd love to sell some shirts for Corey. They're great shirts. If you care about staying sharp and informed, make The Lion part of your daily routine. Published by the Herzog Foundation, The Lion covers the headlines that matter, from politics and policy to culture and faith, all through a common-sense, values-driven lens. It's the kind of journalism that goes beyond the surface, offering the context and clarity today's news demands. Whether you're tracking big national stories or you want to know what's happening in schools, state houses, and communities across the country, The Lion delivers smart, well-sourced reporting you're not going to find anywhere else. So go to readlion.com, and while you're there, sign up for their daily and weekly newsletters. Readlion.com, news that informs and respects your worldview. Gavin Newsom is going forward with his redistricting scheme in California. It's passed through 2 chambers, although unlike Texas, where they're doing their own redistricting right now, California must go to the people on a ballot measure to redo their constitution and redo the way the redistricting happens in that state. They need to basically empower the legislature and the governor to go ahead and do this, which would completely reorient the way California has done redistricting in the past. You see, they changed the rules several years ago because they hated the gerrymandering. They hated the political class doing exactly what they're doing right now. Well, we'll see if the people of California stand up for it. We have our own opinions here, and I'll share them with you in a moment. But Gavin Newsom thinks he's hitting his stride. He thinks that he's demonstrating to Democrats that he's willing to fight no matter what, no matter how unfair, no matter how deceptive he has to be, he's going to fight. And I guess Democrats like that. Here he is with Jasmine Crockett on a podcast where they, talk about a meeting of the minds. Take a look.
ICE, for the most part, is nothing but a ride. That's all they were supposed to do for the most part, right? It's like, you know what? This person is undocumented, or this person re-enters the country illegally, all the things, and then they have an ICE hold. And then ICE gets them so they can then send them out. That's all ICE is supposed to do. Look at them as a fancy Uber driver for immigrants. That's all they're supposed to do. And now they're running into places and doing raids, and they're falling all over each other, injuring each other. Like, we are a joke, but it is a bad nightmare of a joke. And so I don't think that this president has any limits that he won't go to.
Can they be more insulting to law enforcement? ICE is just supposed to be like Uber drivers. That's all. I hope you caught my interview with Mr. Lyons, the acting director of ICE, earlier this week. If not, take a look at it on the channel here. These great men and women who are enforcing our immigration laws deserve a lot more respect. She's a moron. This is a sitting member of Congress, the body that empowers and funds ICE. And she's like, well, they're really just Uber drivers. They're just meant to drive people back and forth. I understand she takes a chauffeur to drive 3 blocks from her apartment to work in Congress in D.C., but no, that's not what ICE is supposed to be. I assure you, Jasmine. Yet Gavin Newsom thinks that he's got this whole secret formula to rewrite all of the maps in California. But a familiar face, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who is from California, he's got different ideas, and he's saying not so fast, Gavin Newsom. I'm going to show you the cold reality, the ice water that Kevin McCarthy has splashed all over Gavin Newsom's perfectly coiffed hair in a moment. But first, here he is with a bunch of Democrat influencers, don't you know, at his podcast.
Oh, amen to that. Thank you. Because to your point, and to Olivia's less polite point, and I'm going to keep it real as much as I can right now, I'm sick and fucking tired of watching these institutions capitulating and bending the knee. I am sick and tired of watching law firms and higher education institutions bending the knee and obeying in advance. And I've had it with that kind of weakness. So when I write about your fight right now and the way you are meeting this moment, fire with fire, people respond to that because they are sick of it too. And he's going after UCLA right now and trying to bribe them, trying to get them to bend the knee. And UCLA is hell no. And please, out there, everybody, Harvard, don't do it. Stop capitulating. But this UCLA thing, can you talk about that a little bit? He's going after UCLA. All of this is just retribution, because he's a little small person. I hesitate to say the things I would normally say, but let's just say anatomically, we know it's a little bit of overcompensation. But yeah, can you talk about what he's trying to do to UCLA?
Okay, so boy, there's a lot to unpack there, and I don't want to spend too much time. That's JoJo from Jers on social media. JoJo from Jersey, who, by the way, talk about truth in advertising. She does not look at all like her profile picture, does she? I think she might be drunk. I could be wrong. She sounds drunk, but she's also from Jersey. So, potato. Trump is overcompensating because of the size of his manhood. Is that what she's suggesting? I mean, she is an expert in this realm, though, I have to point out, because for those of you who don't know, JoJo from Jers is actually dating none other than this guy. Yeah, that's right. George Conway, fresh off of his divorce of his wife, Kellyanne Conway, is now dating JoJo from Jersey. So, a little grace extended, please, because she's going through it, man. It can't be easy. And it's understandable why very small wieners are on her mind right now. She can't stop thinking about it. It's all she sees, right?
Yeah. Can you talk about what he's trying to do to UCLA?
Well, he's a broken man, and he's trying to break this country. That's for sure.
There's no question about that. That said, let's take a step back, because what you said is just it's so critically important. And that's referring to you, Skadden Arps. That's referring to you, Paul Weiss. That's referring to you, Brown University. That's referring to you, Columbia University. And yes, I hope you're listening, Harvard. 50 plus 52, $3 billion in endowment. What the hell is the point of an endowment if you cannot stand up for the cultivation of individual or independent thought? Because that's what this is all about. He is literally trying to shut down institutions across the spectrum, and that includes the media, ABC, that includes the media, CBS, that includes private companies, some of the wealthiest in the world, NVIDIA, 15%, selling out 10% to the dear leader, Intel. You can't, the crony, any institution that reflects any variant of cultivating any kind of independent thinking, and institutions of higher learning, front and center. The finest public university system on planet Earth, the UC system, that is sitting on 13,800, don't quote me, roughly 13,800 active patents, more than any other system in the world. The conveyor belt for talent, the reason California is the tentpole of the US economy, the reason America is the tentpole of the world economy, pushing out the boundaries of science and discovery, more scientists, engineers, researchers, more Nobel laureates, the envy of the world. He's trying to break them down. He's trying to gut the research that keeps our national defense system operational, that keeps us dominant in quantum, keeps us dominant in artificial intelligence. He is telling us we have to have 3 co-equal payments, and we have to submit to an oversight agreement. $1 billion fine to UCLA, one of the finest institutions of higher learning on the planet. It will not happen as long as I'm governor. I'm on the UC Regents. We will stand tall. We will fight back. We are not these Ivy League schools, and we are not these law firms, and we sure as hell aren't these media companies that are selling out for short-termers. I care too much about you and your kids and your grandkids. I care less about situational values. I care about sustainable values in every way, shape, or form. We will stand up to those enduring values. UCLA will fight back, and we will win. It may take a while, but we will win.
Lost in that conversation and that very passionate monologue from Gavin Newsom is exactly why UCLA and other UC schools are facing fines from the Trump administration, the Justice Department, and the Department of Education. May I remind you, it's because they treated Jewish students like dirt. They allowed for pro-Hamas terrorist protesters to shut down their campus quad and prohibit Jewish students from walking across campus and entering certain buildings. And the faculty participated in that, and UC did nothing to punish those students, and they allowed the religious ethnic discrimination to continue. It's funny how that doesn't make it into that impassioned monologue that we just heard about the tentpole of the American economy. The only tentpole we know about in California are the tentpoles holding up all of the criminal vagrants and homeless people's tents where they're living on the street and defecating and urinating therein. By the way, I wonder how long it takes him to file down his fangs. Honestly, when there it is. Dude's a vampire or some kind of supervillain. But it's good that the fangs don't show anymore. He's got the energy, though, of a serial killer. Do you feel it? I feel it. Here he is, just barely containing his violent tendencies.
This is radical rigging of a midterm election. Radical rigging of an election, destroying, vandalizing this democracy, the rule of law. So I'm sorry. I know some people's sensibilities. I respect and appreciate that. But right now, with all due respect, we're walking down a damn different path. We're fighting fire with fire, and we're going to punch these sons of bitches in the mouth.
Oh, it's some violent rhetoric, ain't it? Punch these sons of bitches in the mouth. Okay, that sounds real fiery, and that's really going to drum up support in the base, and he's going to raise money for his presidential campaign. So to that end, it's very successful. Just a quick semantics problem here. This is vandalism against our democracy. Actually, democracy is going to function the same way, pal. I don't know why it's so hard for them to understand this. The democratic process continues. You go in, you vote, democracy. Now, what might get affected by redistricting, even the redistricting you don't like that you want to call, vandalism or gerrymandering, what will get affected is the constitutional representation in our republic, you see. People are still voting. There's your democracy. But what their districts look like and who their representative ends up being might be altered because of redistricting. But that's not democracy, you see. That's Republican representation. It's a constitutional republic, not a democracy. But they're just either too ignorant or too insulting of your intelligence to actually get it right, because they love how it sounds. They're assaulting our democracy. Fine. Set aside my semantics concerns. Gavin Newsom punching you back in the face and fighting hard. He's going to raise money from Democrats, but will he be successful? Let's check in with Kevin McCarthy, who knows a thing or two about California politics. He's a very successful member of the House of Representatives, rose to the level of Speaker of the House, you'll remember. He's from Bakersfield, the Central Valley. Before that, he was a very successful Republican in Sacramento. Before, by the way, California redistrict all of their state districts to make the Republican Party about this big in representation in Sacramento, even though consistently about 40% of the people in California identify as Republican and voted for Trump this last time around. Kevin McCarthy knows California. He also knows how to raise money, and he's engaged in this fight now.
California, Republicans vote 39%. They have 17% of the vote. They'll now be down to 6%. Democrats have 83%. You're very upset about Texas. You know what Republicans will have in Texas after they have 56% of the vote? About 72%. Do you know what the Democrats have in Illinois? They have more than 83% of the lines, and the Republicans are for. Yeah, but you haven't done one show on that.
That's not true. We do it all the time.
But Pritzker has. That's what Pritzker already did.
I just showed the map with all.
You showed the map then, but what did we do when Pritzker did about that? Each state has their right, and you know what? The Republicans in Illinois didn't run away from the state. You know what? In California, when they did that, we didn't run away. We competed. Nancy Pelosi was Speaker. And I won the majority by 5 seats. And you know what? I won those 5 seats in California, which people believe it would be very difficult to do. Yeah. So I believe the voters should have the say. That's all this about. And each state has their own constitution. California has a constitution. And we now have a governor that wants to change the constitution for his own political belief.
That's right. Thank you, Newsbusters, for the clip. Kevin McCarthy knows how to organize. He knows how to win. He knows how to raise money, and he's engaged in this fight. So is former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, who also knows how to raise money, and he's still very popular in that state. Gavin Newsom is going to hit a brick wall on this issue. I promise you that. It's not going to go the way everybody thinks it's going to go for him, and he's going to end up looking like a failure. Listen, Democrats everywhere else might say, oh, sure, he lost, but he fights for us, and so we love him, so let's go. Okay, let's see how that works. Because if he does try to run for president, I can tell you right now, every single state, every battleground state, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, whichever ones are still battleground states, the ads write themselves. Look what Gavin Newsom has done to California. Don't let him do it to the rest of our country. Don't California my North Carolina. Don't California my Michigan. Don't California my Arizona. It's really that simple. But Democrats are in deep, deep trouble if they think that this is the best way for them to somehow finally get some kind of support their way. Scarborough, in fact, is going to explain that to them in a second. But let me just give you my 2 cents. This whole fight in California that Gavin Newsom is waging, his whole style of using capital letters and tweeting just like Trump, everything they do for the last 10 years has had the same consistent common denominator, which is it's not about what they believe. It's not about what they want to do for you when they're in power. It's not about their great ideas for governance. Everything they do is a reaction to Donald Trump. Even this gerrymandering thing and redistricting thing. He's admitted he wouldn't be doing this if Trump hadn't asked Texas to build out some new districts in the state. He wouldn't be tweeting the way he's tweeting to make fun of Donald Trump because it's all a reaction to Donald Trump. Every single aspect of that interview you just heard in that podcast is not about who Gavin Newsom is, what Gavin Newsom believes, what Gavin Newsom's track record is. Everything is about Donald Trump, and this has been their big pitfall for the last 10 years. All they do is rage about Trump. Trump is so living rent-free in their heads that they've got nothing to offer on their own, and the American people are done with that. Fine, we get it. You don't like Trump. What about you? What are you going to do other than not be Trump? See, they won an election under shady circumstances in 2020 based on that. We're done with Trump. Vote for me. I'm Joe Biden. And then what happened? Nothing. Worse than nothing. Disaster. It's all they've got. And it ain't a lot. Especially considering that guy they're railing against all the time and raging against all the time and fighting against all the time just won in a pretty overwhelming fashion. And so far, just 7 months into his presidency, things are pretty damn good. Now, things could change in a couple of years. That's true. But here's the other thing that, I'm sorry for giving Democrats so many secrets and pointers right now, but it's humble old little Larry. So I'm just going to give you my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. And I could be wrong about this, obviously. I'm no genius. You guys are the brilliant ones. You guys are so smart. You always get it right. You guaranteed us Kamala was going to win. You thought Tim Walz was a great choice. You thought J.D. Vance was an awful choice, right? And you guaranteed us that Hillary Clinton was going to win. So you guys are geniuses. You're brilliant. You know everything. But let me just throw it out there. Again, could be wrong, but I'm going to throw it out there. But I'm pretty sure in 2028, Donald Trump is not running for president. So all this opposition to Trump and all the, everything's about Trump and Trump this and Trump, we got to not do that. And we got to stop Trump there, stop Trump there. He's not running. You're not running against him. All right, fine. You're not going to listen to me, but listen to this guy, Joe Scarborough, right? You love him. He's a Democrat. Isn't he? Oh, no, he's a Republican. That's right. Well, okay.
Breathing into a paper bag. I'm trying to calm down a little bit, but John just quoted a remarkable stat out of the New York Times that in the 30 states where they track voter registration over the past 4 years, Democrats have lost to Republicans in every single state. Why?
So this is the $24 million question, right? Why are Democrats not, why are the polls bad? Why are they not breaking through? And I think it's a couple things. I think one is the people who are breaking through are brave, right? They talk like humans. They make the case, and again, it's like Pritzker's chief of staff told me, it's not necessarily left versus center. It's fight versus cave. And the people who fight get support. And the people who cave or are mealy-mouthed or are, very sort of corporatist-y, that crew, the crew that's afraid, cannot break through, does not appeal to voters. The question is, it's only going to be for people who really feel authentic, right?
Sherrod's never been afraid of a shadow.
Exactly.
He's always spoken his mind.
Chris Murphy, Sherrod Brown, Mondami, these people, AOC, they're not all exactly the same politically, but they are the same in the fact that they're brave and they break through.
Okay, so Ginger Cruella DeVille makes an important point here, although it wasn't the question that was posed. She's saying, oh, no, well, the Democrats who are getting support are the ones who fight. They're the ones who are breaking through. Okay, well, that wasn't the question. The question wasn't which Democrats are going to raise money and which Democrats are going to get attention and which Democrats are going to, get support. The question is, why did Democrats keep losing? And the data point that Joe Scarborough was pointing out was a New York Times report. There are 30 states in America where when you register to vote, you give a party affiliation, right? The other 20 states have no party affiliation for voter registration. right? But for those 30 states, you have to identify as Republican or Democrat. And the New York Times just had a report out this week where every single one of those states, all of them, 30 out of 30, clean sweep across the board in those 30 states where you register and give party affiliation, Republicans are trouncing Democrats. And I mean trouncing Democrats. It's a net gain for Republicans since the last time they did this survey a couple of years ago of 4.7 million voters. That's not a statistical rounding error. That is a total, utter collapse. And the answer to the question is not what Ginger Cruella DeVille said here, which is, well, we like Democrats who fight. Okay, guess what? Hey, this guy fights. Is he going to win anything other than JoJo from Jersey's love? Yeah, keep fighting. Absolutely. It's amazing to me that the lesson the Democrats think they've learned from Kami Mamdani in New York is that, yeah, we got to fight, and socialism is fine as long as you're fighting and you've got great TikTok videos, and then the people will love socialism. So we've got to embrace him. We've got to embrace his ideas. Dude won the Democrat primary over Andrew Cuomo, one of the most unpopular politicians in New York, who's like literally killed people during COVID, in my opinion, in the nursing homes based on objective fact. People are dead because of Andrew Cuomo, and New Yorkers know that. He was drummed out of office and resigned in disgrace because of sexual harassment allegations. And so, of course, he lost to like the bright and shiny object 33-year-old in a Democrat primary when only 13% of the actual voters in New York came out for that vote. And it's New York City, a pretty small microcosm of a voting sample, certainly not broad national kind of ideology represented in New York City. I think it's fair to say, but they're all saying, well, that's it. We've all got to embrace Mamdani. We got to go this is where we're all going to go. So they're all running to the left and they're embracing the communist, and they're leaving this wide open middle ground for Trump and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis and Republicans for as far as the eye can see to just come out and say, hey, we don't think men can be pregnant. And we don't think fixing grocery stores' solution is to let the government run the grocery stores. And we don't think buses in a city should be free because there'll be rolling homeless shelters. We're normal. We're not communist. We're not this guy. They are lurching so far over to the extreme left that they're leaving this wide open lane for Republicans to gobble up the middle, and they don't get it. They don't see it. But we like them to fight. And then, and now Democrats are starting to get wise that they sound like lunatics. Get this from Politico this morning. Apparently, new consultants for the Democrats have given them a list of words that they shouldn't use anymore. Their words, all their words, the words they love. Look at the words. They shouldn't use privilege anymore. Or violence as it relates to things that inherently are not violent, like environmental violence, right? That SUV is committing environmental violence. Yes, stop doing that. Dialoguing. Please stop. You want to talk to somebody, talk, but don't say you're dialoguing. Triggering. Othering, microaggression, holding space, body shaming, subverting norms, systems of oppression, cultural appropriation, Overton window, existential threat to fill in the blank, radical transparency, stakeholders, the unhoused, food insecurity, housing insecurity, person who immigrated, birthing person, cisgender, dead naming, heteronormative, patriarchy, LGBTQIA+, BIPOC, allyship, incarcerated people, and involuntary confinement. Stop using those words, Democrats. Which, of course, leaves, I don't know, what have they got after that? I mean, seriously, how are they supposed to be dialoguing with anyone if they can't use those words? I mean, that's verbal violence. Blacklisting those words. It's almost as bad as dead naming. They're done. As of now, they're done. They might get resurrected if someone can emerge and actually, be normal. And you know what that means? It's Tim Walz's time. All right, guys, thanks for watching. My goodness, that was a long show, but I owed you a long show because we took a few days off. Although, honestly, they weren't days off because we had 2 interview shows. Didn't feel like days off. Can I be honest? I didn't take a day off. Guess who took a day off? Guess whose day off it was? His name begins with Kevin.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I had to. Well, because I'm taking time off coming up in a week or so. So I had to throw you under the bus this time.
It's only fair.
You sound so rested.
Tanned, rested, and ready.
There you go. All right, let's go to your super chats. $10 from Arthur Brogdon over there at Rumble. God help Obama, Comey, Brennan et al. If Trump suddenly announces he's attending a highly public baptism of a grandchild. This does feel like the end of The Godfather, doesn't it? We settle all family business. Let's go. Nice reference, Brogdon. I got that one. Thank you, sir. We got $10 from Ball State alum. Hey, Jeff. Bolton looks like a Colonel Sanders lookalike after 3 hits of mescaline during a 48-hour bender in the red light district in Bangkok. Wow. That is oddly specific. Did you hear me call him the nuclear walrus? That's a Dennis Miller line. Thank you, Ball State. Appreciate it. And we got, Sharon Cabana with a $20 super chat. That's so generous, Sharon. My goodness. Thank you for being my workout partner at the gym. I listen to both you and Megan Kelly, and it makes the whole thing a lot more fun. Well, that's very sweet, and I appreciate it. We love Megan, and she would be inspiring for a workout for me, certainly. Thank you, Sharon. It's very kind of you. Sharon's a member, along with Ball State alum, of Larry VIP over on Substack. If you want to join, you'd love it there. Dennis Harmon with a $25 super chat. I left California because of Newsom and all the idiots that put him in office. He's a stooge and a con man. Yep, but he's also a political beast, and he's great at what he does. He's got one skill set: winning elections. So don't count him out. Republicans should not underestimate this guy. But thank you, Dennis. I hear you. Charlie Hand with a $2 super chat. Thank you, sir. Nice Under Armour hat. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Under Armour, the official uniform manufacturer for Navy football, which begins in just 8 days, I think. 8 days. And I can't go to the first game. Kevin, do you want tickets to my Navy football game?
Not if I don't get to hang out with you.
That's fair. All right. We're done. We'll be back live Monday. In fact, we're live all week next week, aren't we, Kevin?
I believe so.
Yes. Well, no, wait. That's not true.
Monday through Wednesday?
Monday through Wednesday next week, we will be live. But then it's this guy's turn for vacation. But don't worry. We've got a lot planned for you. Some really, really great interviews that I'm super pumped about. From a lot of people that we actually feature here on this show on a regular basis. Some people that you might recognize from the clips we play. I will be interviewing them and presenting them for your pleasure while I'm on vacation. So sit tight. Don't worry. And we'll keep you informed on the days that we have off and the days that we're presenting you interviews. All right. Thank you for your tolerance. It's great to be back. And we'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.